trans man groped me, but then acted like he was the victim. We're going to react to this and all your other woke horror stories, personal life situations, and questions that you guys sent in for me in this Voicemail Friday episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast, my daily show where we take on the craziest ideas from across the internet, our media, and our politics, all from an independent perspective. On Fridays, I take your voicemails with your crazy stories that have happened to you and other stuff you want to tell me about, and I give you my honest responses and reaction. The link to send one of those in is in the description. Up first, guys, we're going to hear a really kind of disturbing story about somebody who was touched inappropriately by a trans man who then had the audacity to play the victim after doing this. Let's take a listen.
Hi, Brad. I'm just going to use a fake name. I'm just going to say John. I'm sorry, but I kind of don't want this traced back to me because it's a little bit embarrassing. This was about a year ago. At this point, I went out with some of my friends. We went to a club, and we're obviously not sober. We're at a club, right? And this woman comes up who I thought was a woman and offered to buy me a drink. I'm not going to say no, right? So I take the drink, I sit down, we have a conversation, and I feel the hand wrap around my shoulder. So I very kindly let this person know, like, hey, I'm gay, I'm sorry, but like, I'm not attracted to you, but I would love to be friends. This person responds by saying, I'm a trans man. They look, imagine like Lily Tino, if Lily Tino was female transitioning to male. That's what they looked like, essentially. Not trans at all. After that whole debacle, nothing bad ended up happening. They just walked away. I was on the dance floor, and I felt someone come up to me and fully grope my crotch and squeeze. I turned around with my elbow out, and I hooked this person in the face, and I screamed very loudly, "What the f*** are you doing?" Long story short, I got kicked out of the club because this person made a huge stink about me being transphobic. When I complained to security on the way out, one of them laughed in my face. I did end up getting him fired. I took a video and I ended up getting him fired later. I just want to know why these people think they're so untouchable. I can't help but think if I did that to a woman, I would be facing years in jail.
Wow, there's a lot to talk about in that story, but first, I'm really sorry that happened to you. There's like a weird, particularly with gay men, they think sometimes people think it's okay to just like touch you, and this is something gay men do to other gay men. Like, we'll just grope you and it's no big deal. I actually think it is, and I think people should respect people's boundaries a little bit more, especially in this case. It is, I mean, it's never really appropriate to just go up and grab somebody, but you already told this person you weren't interested, and then they went up to you and groped your genitals. That's a crime, babe. Yeah, that's a crime. So I'm really sorry that happened to you. This person should absolutely have gotten in trouble for it, not gotten you in trouble. And I hate this weaponization of identity. Like, it really doesn't matter if you're trans or not. You can't do that to people. And when you do, you're not the victim. Some people, and this is the thing, they're really, it's not that trans people are more likely to be predators or anything like that. That's not statistically borne out. But the problem is that some predators will claim to be trans and then do stuff like this. And maybe that applies to this person. I honestly don't know. I do find it interesting that they would be like, oh, when you said, oh, I'm gay, sorry, I'm not interested. They'd be like, oh, it's okay, I'm a trans man. I'd be like, yeah, read my previous email. I'm gay, not interested. That's what that means, especially if you, I mean, it'd be one thing if they were very, transitioned and passing and looked just like a man. Even then, a lot of gay men wouldn't be interested for obvious reasons, but some might who are maybe a little bit on the bi spectrum or a little bit more flexible or open-minded. But when you're literally just still look like a woman, to be like, oh, it's okay, I'm a trans man, you should still be interested. Y'all do not understand. You're still thinking like a female if you think that's how men work. Oh, well, I told you something different about how I feel inside, so that should change whether you're attracted to me or not. That's not how men work. It's simply not. And it's unfortunate because I think that a lot of this entitlement and a lot of this overreach on the gender stuff really rubs people the wrong way. I shouldn't have said it like that in this one, but it really does rub people the wrong way, and it leads to a lot of backlash and resistance and resentment, even from gay men, even from lesbians, even from people who are very sympathetic to the idea of letting people live how will make them happiest and letting acknowledging people's differences. You can only push so far, and some of them have pushed and groped simply beyond the point of any reasonable person accepting it or putting up with it. So now they're finding out the hard way. And that's unfortunate. And it's really unfortunate that you were subjected to this. I'm really sorry you had to go through that, but thank you for sharing. And guys, if you want to send in your story, remember the link is in the description. I love hearing from you guys. Make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet, and do hit that like button while you're at it, because we got so many more crazy things to talk about today. Up next, a really interesting one. This woman got in trouble as a teenager for blackface, but like that is not what happened at all. And it just all shows the absurdity of the time that we lived in. Take a listen to this.
Hey Brad, huge fan of the show. Here is a story about the time I got blackface allegations when I was 15 years old. So this was like early 2020. Social justice tension was very high, but lockdowns hadn't fully started yet. I'm at a sleepover with my friends and face paint comes out and I put the face paint on and everybody did. And it's time to wash it off, but it was very thick, cheap paint. I had all kinds of colors on my face. So when I'm washing it off, it kind of turns into a homogeneous brown color all over my face and everyone's freaking out and thinks it's funny because I didn't mean to make my face brown and I'm trying as hard as I can to get it off and it won't come off. But anyway, somebody snaps a picture, and then a couple months later, the girl who took the picture, she's in kind of hot water for something that she said. So she leaks this picture to try and avert the attention onto me, and I got allegations for months about me being a terrible person doing blackface when it was just a misunderstanding.
That is actually insane. And it is just so psychotic, but actually sadly kind of not that atypical in the cancel culture madness that we live through, that somebody would sit on that kind of, in this case, like very fake, but receipts about you. And then when they get in trouble themselves, release that to like distract from it. But that's so disgusting to me. Everything about that is terrible, but we see that a lot. Like, I think of this when I see these stories about a kid getting their college acceptance revoked or their scholarship revoked or their, offer letter for athletics or something revoked because somebody released a video of them from years back singing the N-word in a song or something. I'm like, I obviously I think it's unfair and ridiculous on its own terms because, people are young and stupid and just do things, and it's not the end of the world and people grow and change. But I always wonder about the psychology of the person that takes a screen recording of a Snapchat story, sits on it for years, and then sees somebody else thriving and releases it to take them down. Like, in my head, in my view, you have to be kind of sick in the head to do that. You have to be really in a dark place yourself where you just want to tear down others because it doesn't make your life any better. And you're not actually addressing some cosmic injustice or anything like that. It's just really gross. And it sounds like that's kind of what happened here. And I just think on the blackface thing, we've totally lost the plot to the point where obviously you shouldn't do blackface to mock black people. That's wrong. That's racist. And obviously we shouldn't do that. But the panic over blackface has come to encompass people whose faces happen to be colored or shaded in any sort of way, but then it wasn't being done to mock black people. It's like a face mask, or it's a face paint that blurred, like you're saying. And that's why I always come back to what should matter is the intent. But then in the cancel culture madness, intent was discarded, and impact, by which they just mean how emotionally unbalanced people talked about it on Twitter, is what really counts, not intent. I actually think intent is the most important thing of all in this. And you had no ill intent. So frankly, nobody should have ever given you a hard time about it. And I'm sorry you had to go through that, but it's sadly not that atypical of a lot of the absurdity folks had to live with. But what do you guys think? Have you heard similar stories to this? Let me know in the comments. Next, we're going to hear from somebody who had a bad experience with a vendor in Canada, given all the political chaos and bad relations going on between the Trump administration and Canada right now. Let's take a listen to this.
Hey, Brad, this is Lonnie. I'm one of your many fans. I like watching your show. This was just my woke horror story that happened to me more recently that I wanted to share. I had recently bought something off of Etsy. I had reached out to the seller in regards to tracking shipment info. It was late, and so I just wanted an update on it. And they basically, because it was from Canada, just came right out the gate. I didn't bring politics or anything up. I was just like, hey, do you have any updates? I don't see any updates on UPS or USPS, and I don't see any updates on the Etsy app. I was just wondering if you might have some information that I don't. And they basically were like, well, nice at first, you know what I mean? Like the first portion of their message was really nice. Like, oh yeah, like I sent it through the way that you requested, you know, and so it has been shipped. But then they went on to say like your orange hair dictator is the reason. So you can thank him, blah, 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 basically bringing in politics. And so all I did was say like, hey, I would really appreciate it if you could refrain from politics. I don't even care whether or not I agree with them or not. In my personal opinion, I just think that you should keep those out of it. So what do you think? Do you think that sellers should be inserting their politics unnecessarily into a conversation where it's not necessary? I didn't know this person personally. They don't know me. So, yeah.
No, I do not think they should be doing that. Like, it's diabolical the extent to which people just don't want to do their jobs anymore. I'm reminded of on the other day on the podcast, we talked about the Texas phone bans and this principal complaining that our administration is going to have to print out schedules for the kids now because they can't use their phones. It's like, yes, I'm so sorry that you have to do your job. I don't know what to tell you. I have the same feeling about this Etsy person. It's like, yeah, selling things internationally involves navigating international trade and issues that come up. And I think it would be totally fair, for example, because you should know the consequences of Trump's policies, some of which I agree with, some of which I don't. And I actually disagree with a lot of his trade war with Canada. If a tariff was affecting, for example, the cost of your good and there was an additional fee that was labeled, tariff costs, or if the package was delayed because of some policy, I think it would be totally fair for the person to inform you, hey, that is why this is delayed. It's because of this policy. It should take about 3 weeks to sort through. We're working on it as fast as we can. It's not like, oh, they can't ever mention anything political or related to Trump, but it shouldn't just be them injecting their personal feelings and ramblings into a business transaction. That is unprofessional and unhinged. And yeah, no, people should not be doing that. And in fact, if they really just wanted to get through to people that maybe did vote for Trump or support Trump and be like, hey, these policies are affecting you, as soon as they start saying you're orange dictator, anybody who is at all sympathetic to Trump is going to tune them out. So what they really should just say is just calmly, dispassionately, yes, this is what's happening because of this policy from the administration. This will be delayed by this amount. This will be this additional expense. If they communicated it that way, they could actually potentially get through to some people that like, hey, what's Trump doing? Like, this isn't good, but they just can't help themselves. They just can't help themselves. It's a reoccurring theme. What do you guys think? Have you encountered this with international business transactions? Genuinely very curious, because I know a lot of people work in jobs or engage in different transactions where they're talking to people from across the world. And I know a lot of people outside of America have strong feelings about Trump. I know they do. Up next, we're going to hear from somebody who has a question about my take on the Texas law banning phones in public schools. Let's take a listen to that.
Hi, Brad. My name's Braden. I'm currently a senior, and I've been a fan of yours since sophomore year. And I just got finished watching one of your videos over the new Texas law about phones. And I was wondering your thoughts on maybe retweaking the law, as in just adding some little things here and there, such as teachers can decide after an assignment, after their curriculum for the day, whether or not students can socialize or be on their phone, since it's their classroom. And maybe like a 2 warning system where instead of immediately snatching or taking away the phone, you get like 2 strikes, and then the second time you swing with the phone, then you get it taken away, or maybe even detention or sent to the office. I've just been noticing that a bunch of my friends and classmates have been upset about it just because they think it sounds unreasonable. So I'm thinking that maybe if we make it sound more reasonable, then less students will be upset about it and will be more likely to agree with it like I do. Anyway, let me know your thoughts and let me know if I'm just being a little biased. Hope your day's good.
Well, thank you, and thanks for the note. I totally get what you're saying. I wouldn't be against tweaking the policies a little bit here or there, but I'm not sure that making these changes would make a lot of sense. Because, for example, letting teachers decide, okay, yeah, you can go on your phones, but in the last few minutes before the bell rings or whatever, I actually think it's probably better to just take that out of the equation entirely. And you know what? Kids can talk, or they can just sit for a moment or two without stimulation, without a phone, without a screen buzzing. It's that's actually what something humans are supposed to be able to do. I find myself, I struggle with this. I always have a podcast in, or I'm either talking to someone or doing something, or if not, I'm listening to something or watching something while I do something else. And so what I do is, a little bit of Florida privilege here. I try to swim in the evening at like 4:30 or 5 o'clock for like half an hour. And I just go out in the pool at my hotel, or not my hotel, my apartment complex. And I don't have anything in. I don't have a podcast playing. I don't have my phone. I just sit with my own thoughts and relax and try to stop the never ending like notifications and thoughts and everything. And actually, I think kids should probably be forced to do that. It's probably healthy and good. And so I don't really think they need to make that change. As far as, a 2-strike rule or whatever, I get what you're saying, but I think to make such an extreme shift, you're probably going to have a pretty strict policy, at least at first, to get people to actually go along with it. And I'm not sure how you would track, your strikes. Like if one teacher gives you a strike early in the day and the next second time in the afternoon, I think you're probably just going to have to be pretty draconian about it at first. And I totally get it. Kids are going to bristle at it. They're not going to be thrilled about it. But ultimately, I think it's probably in their best interests. What do you guys think? Especially if you have any kids or you're a kid yourself that are going through this forced phone detoxing in schools. I think I have a sympathy for people. I know I would really struggle to do it myself. I'm working on it on my own, addiction and screen time and everything too. But I really think it's going to be for everyone's best interest in the long run. What do you guys think? Do let me know. Okay, up next, we're going to hear from somebody whose liberal anti-Trump neighbor threatened to call ICE on their mom. Make it make sense. You can't. Let's take a listen to this crazy story.
Hey Brad, I really like your show. I love how you always have such a level head about everything. The story I'm telling is about this crazy liberal neighbor we have. She does not like Trump. She's not conservative, but she threatened to call ICE on my mom, assuming that she is an illegal immigrant because she's Mexican. And obviously this offended my mom greatly
Yeah.
because not only is she a legal immigrant, she is also a citizen and served in the military. So, yes, this neighbor, I was shocked when I heard this. She was claiming my mom needed to get taken away, and, she called the cops on us. Because she saw my mom in the street in front of her house, which she did not like. And I was especially shocked because I did not expect it to come from someone who was biracial like me. I'm half white, half Mexican. This neighbor that wants my mom deported is half black, half white, but she's clearly a Karen.
Yeah, I mean, you can say that again, but it is funny how quick, a liberal anti-Trump person sees a Mexican person, assumes they must be illegal. Yeah, that would be called racism. But I think this stuff, and you're like, oh, it's surprising to me that a mixed race person would think like this. It all makes sense when you realize that people don't make sense. When you realize that most people don't actually have coherent worldviews or political ideologies that are internally consistent. They just have a number of tribal affiliations and biases and a few issues where they have strong feelings, and then the rest is kind of just them mentally filling in the blanks. And that's not even shade, that's not even an insult. I don't expect the average person to have thought about things that deeply or considered their position on every issue. But actually, you encounter this kind of thing more than you think. You also encounter on the Republican side, like somebody who's, staunch right wing Christian Republican, but pro choice, or, pro trans kids, or whatever, like the thing that doesn't make sense with the internally consistent political philosophy you would expect. You actually encounter that a lot in the real world because people are complicated and they're not purely logical or philosophical beings. They are prone to different forms of bias and emotion, and frankly can just be chaotic. And it sounds like that's what you encountered here, but I'm sorry, because you should not have to go through that. And yeah, that's not okay. And it's certainly not liberal or progressive in any sense of those words that's remotely meaningful. Okay, up next, we're going to hear about another trans person crashing out for no real reason. Shocker. Lots of y'all are chill, don't get me wrong, but you have a problem. The trans community has a problem with very unchill people giving it a bad name. And that's what's happening in many of these situations, including the one we're about to listen to. Take a listen.
Hi, Brad. My name's Brianna. I'm a huge fan. My woke horror story takes place in 2019. I was the only server at a little hole-in-the-wall, authentic Chinese family-owned restaurant. And one day at lunchtime, 3 people walked in, one of whom was a very non-passing trans woman. But I'll always respect anyone's pronouns if I can clearly see what they're trying to convey. So I walked up to the table to take their order, and I said, "What can I get you guys?" Oh my God, did she lose her mind on me? She was so upset I said, "You guys," when clearly I didn't mean it that way. And I made it very clear I apologized. I let her know I didn't mean anything by that. And that I call everybody "you guys." And she ended up becoming a regular of ours, and I really did like her as a person. But that was kind of at what I feel like is the start of the like woke madness. And I'll just never forget that getting my head chewed off for saying "you guys." So anyway, thank you so much for your time and for what you do. I appreciate you. It's great to see your success, Brad. Have a great day.
Well, I had no idea my fans were such bigoted, horrible people. Nah, I'm just kidding. Thank you for tuning in, for your support. You did nothing wrong. I'm getting triggering flashbacks here because remember, I know if you're a regular listener, you already know this. You've probably heard this story, but bear with me. I went to a super woke college and I literally got written up and threatened with termination from my student newspaper because I said about a colleague who identified as non-binary that they sounded like the boy who cried wolf. And of course, it was a boy, it was a guy. Though usually non-binary is females, actually. But in this case, it was a male who identified as non-binary, but totally looked like a guy and still acted like a whiny gay bitch, which is what he was. But anyway, he got so offended that I used the phrase "boy who cried wolf" to describe him. And it's like, bro, it's literally a phrase. It's a I don't know exactly what you would even call that, but it's a thing people say. It's about boys, girls, everyone, because you're referring to the parable about the boy who cried wolf, right? And I was literally told that I had done a microaggression, that if it happened again, I would be fired, that I was making the place unsafe. And, now years later, and at the time I was so horrified because I tried to respect people's pronouns. And now I'm like, I just don't care. I don't really care if you're upset. I have fatigue. I have pronoun fatigue. I have non-binary fatigue. All right. So I think they may not realize that they have created this atmosphere where even people who meant well and tried to be nice no longer give an F. And honestly, like, that's how I would feel in your situation. Yeah. Okay. The fact that they over police people to the point of that is so insane that people stop caring. They're like, you know what? You're going to find some reason to be upset anyway, so I'm not even going to bother to try. And I don't really think that's even better for them that we're here now in this place that we're in on this issue and on this discourse that's genuinely so toxic in so many ways. And it also, your story that you recounted to me, it reeks of insecurity. I don't know. If you really believe you're a woman, you would not be invalidated to the point of being so distraught by somebody collectively saying to a group of people, hey, you guys, or hey, guys, because again, it's like a person actually sound in their own internal sense of self like that, who believes their identity, doesn't freak out over every minor perceived, not even, or hallucinated, in this case, invalidation of said identity. Because if you're actually secure, you just roll with it, you know? So a lot of it comes from insecurity, but unfortunately, I think it's had the opposite of the intended effect. If their goal in, if the kind of woke speech police's goal and kind of hyper policing people's language like this was to get people to comply more or accommodate more, it's definitely had the opposite effect. And I really can't blame people. I simply cannot. But what do you guys think? Have you had situations like this? Let me know in the comments. Do make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet. Hit that like button if you're watching us on YouTube. And if you're listening on audio podcasts, do me a huge favor, please. Take a moment and go rate and review the show on whatever platform you're listening or watching on. And maybe even consider recommending the show to somebody you know who might like it. That's actually the number one way that podcasts grow. So if you can refer it to just one person, our audio podcast audience will double overnight. And that would make me very happy. So regardless, thank you all so much for tuning in. The link to send in a voicemail is in the description. Also, check out the merch items. Your Delulu is showing on my last brain cell and so much more. We've got our great stuff my boyfriend worked really hard on. And guys, we'll talk again real soon.